everyone. I'm Tiara Fair, your Impact 365 series host. Impact 365 is a production of United Way of Delaware in partnership with DETV. In this ongoing series, we'll see how United Way of Delaware and its partners make a positive impact across our state. We'll talk with old friends and we'll make new ones too. We'll see what's working well and we'll touch on challenging topics. Today on Impact 365, we're talking about the state of education in Delaware, especially in some of our most underserved communities, where too many children are not reading on grade level. The implications for these children's futures and for the Delaware community are enormous. At least 2 of our local school districts are addressing this issue aggressively. We'll get an update on what's happening from Dr. Whitney Williams, principal at Stubbs Early Education Center, and Dr. Darrell Green of Red Clay School District. And later, we'll talk with mental health expert Dr. Julius Mullen. Dr. J will share some ideas for how parents can get help and keep their children on the right track. But first, let's meet today's co-host, Dr. Michelle Shavitz. Michelle is Vice President of Student Success at United Way of Delaware. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Tiara. I'm so excited to be here today.
Me too. We have a lot of doctors in the house today.
We do. We absolutely do. Education is my passion, and it's what wakes me up in the morning, and it's what gets me going, because it is the passport that's going to take you anywhere you want to go. And our young people, especially in our promise communities, we have some struggles, and I think it's really important that we talk about it, and I think it's also really important that we bring in our partners and we think about how we can work with our young people and their parents. It's about the whole child, and education is absolutely the key that's going to help them build the rest of their future. So I'm thrilled to be here today, and I think one of the things that's really important is that we give a really, really close look at what it means and what it means to work in our promise communities with our young people. One of the things I wanted to do was we can share this video today, and I think it's going to give a great idea of what we're talking about, and it's a great way to kick off this conversation for us.
I'm excited. Let's go. Let's watch it.
Okay, let's do it.
Meet Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, and Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, and Jordan, and Jamie Johnson. 2 beautiful babies born on the very same day. Each baby has a good chance of landing in a good place in life, as long as one of them doesn't lose the zip code lottery. Like 1 million babies each year, Jamie's been born into a low-income family. And since Jamie's mom lacked access to good prenatal care, Jamie's much smaller than Jordan. And since they won't have access to brain-developing activities found in high-quality childcare, low-income children like Jamie will be 2 times more likely to experience developmental delays. It probably won't surprise you that by their 3rd birthday, Jamie's been exposed to a lot fewer words than Jordan. A whole lot fewer. And I imagine Jamie's 4th birthday won't be much better. By the time they reach kindergarten, Jamie will have already fallen behind Jordan in language and pre-reading skills by 12 to 14 months. And getting to school on a regular basis will be perhaps Jamie's biggest challenge. Unfortunately, a myriad of health, transportation, and housing problems will cause between 5 and 7.5 million Jamies to be chronically absent this year. But with summer right around the corner, you'd think Jamie would have plenty of time to catch up with Jordan then. Sadly, summer presents new challenges for Jamie. a mountain of challenges. You see, every summer, Jordan's learning will evolve by a month because of access to libraries, field trips, and camps, while Jamie will lose 2 months of school learning every summer because good habits such as reading haven't been reinforced. By the time they reach 3rd grade, Jamie will be between 2 and 2.5 school years behind Jordan in critical reading skills. And how much more likely is Jamie to drop out than Jordan because he can't read at a 3rd grade level? 13 times more likely, and the results of which are frankly catastrophic. Wait just 1 minute there, folks. The story doesn't end right there. Fortunately for Jamie and Jordan and all of us, there's a whole lot of folks out there that believe neither luck, nor lottery, nor zip codes should dictate Jamie's future, who also believe that our schools can't do it alone. Luckily, there are leaders, organizations, and good people out there that are dedicated to believing in a whole lot more. The solution right now is relatively straightforward if we can commit to 4 things. Number 1, we need to make sure our kids are healthy and ready for school. Number 2, we need to ensure they grow up in a word and book-enriched environment. Number 3, we need to engage them in healthy and educational activities over the summer. Number 4, we need to make sure that Jamie attends school every single day, because at the end of the day, you and I both know that lotteries, zip codes, and plain old dumb luck don't really author our children's future. We do.
And we're back. Wasn't that story powerful?
It really is. It's so interesting how just where you live and your zip code can make such a difference in your future and what happens to you in your life.
Exactly. And you know, that story of Jamie and Jordan is not just one, but there are thousands just like that across our state. And with us today to talk about the scope of the situation and how Delaware schools are helping close that academic achievement gap in our promise communities is, again, Dr. Whitney Williams and Superintendent Jarrell Green. And I want to bring that over to you guys and really dig into this a little bit and think about it. What is your reaction to that video, and what does that mean to you?
Well, we love our Jordans and Jamies.
Mm-hmm.
And so in our community, we have Jordans. And so part of that, where we can see the stressors that contribute to the disproportionality of opportunity, basically. We not only have an achievement gap, but we have an opportunity gap that exists between Jamie and Jordan. And so in that way, we're kind of at a place where we have to provide a bit more in and around the whole child, embracing the family, so to speak, so that not just Jordan thrives, but the family can thrive as well.
That's a great point. I mean, when you talk about uplifting one person, there's so many people around that child that are just as important, and lifting them up is just as important.
Absolutely.
So, Superintendent Green, what is your thoughts on that? The first time that you watched it, how impactful was it, and what are your thoughts?
I think it's telling, right? It's our schools are microcosms of the communities that we serve. And so when you look at it and you base it on a zip code, everything that happens within that community shows itself in our schools. Mm-hmm. And as Dr. Williams indicated, you know, we have to provide that extra support not only to that child, that Jordan and or Jamie, but to that family structure. And our schools mean so much more than just, you know, reading proficiency. You know, we have to really address whole child, the social determinants for health, the various other needs that come based on where our children are born.
Absolutely. Dr. Williams, you spoke a little bit about the achievement gap. Now, when you talk about or hear about the achievement gap across the whole state, Do you think that we can really say that it's about COVID, or is it something more structural that's happening?
Yes, it's not just about COVID. Of course, we know the pandemic has come before us now, about 2.5 years. So prior to that, we've seen this achievement gap that has existed in the Jordan and Jamies across kind of historically, unfortunately. But we have the achievement gap that exists because of some of the social determinants that Superintendent Green spoke about, that we in our schools within our high needs communities have additional pieces that we have to make sure are incorporated so that we can provide some wraparound supports around our children. And we have great partners that help us do those wraparound things. And now even looking more up the social services, the things that have come about in our state with House Bill 100 actually, where we recognize the pieces that support social and emotional learning for our children, as well as the social needs with social workers now becoming a part of our actual school district communities, that now we can provide these wraparound supports along with partners that can help us provide a level of security, because that's really a lot of what it's about. Providing opportunities, providing security for our families, and bringing in resources that can help accelerate the learning that has been lost or opportunities that were never given.
So it sounds like what you're saying is that you need to pay attention to the whole child. So
Absolutely.
You can't just pay attention to how they're doing in math or how they're reading. You have to know, do they feel safe at home? Are they eating? Those types of things have to be taken care of first. Do they have a caregiver that is strong and able to support them in their schooling?
Absolutely.
So when you hear that, we, United Way, and a lot of people across the state have worked hard to create these learning pods. Can you talk a little bit about learning pods and how they can positively affect or negatively affect children in the state?
Yeah, so obviously when the pandemic first happened and we had to pivot to a virtual or remote environment, we also knew that childcare, for example, was still a necessity and need. You know, a lot of our families are first responders, frontline workers, so they still needed access to childcare. And so our community-based organizations quickly stood up and partnered with us to give our children a safe place to go. But we had to look at the integration of technology, for example. And so learning pods have continued because we're still in the midst of the pandemic. And so I know in Red Clay, we are probably supporting, I want to say maybe 8 to 10 different agencies. Over 200 children are still gaining access before and after care as we work with our community-based partners to really, again, look at during school, after school, and out of school time. You know, again, a 24/7, 365 endeavor when we really look at education and educating the whole child and supporting families.
I like that. Impact 365.
Exactly, I got that.
Did you get that?
And as we're thinking about the impact and talking about this, you know, I think it's really important for people to understand us as adults, when we wake up in the morning and maybe we're going through something and maybe we didn't have a good day or a good night and we go to work the next day, you know, we're not bringing our full self. Imagine a child, you know, that's going through something and coming to school and we're expecting them to do the math and do the learning and all of those things. So one of the things that I know is extremely important is parent engagement. So can you guys talk a little bit about what a parent can do? What can parents do to help support our children? Because parent engagement might look very different from one parent to the next. One parent, it might be, I got my child on the bus, they have shoes on their feet, and I got them to school because I've got to go work 3 jobs today. And another parent might be at every single function and all of these things. Neither one is wrong. We just have different levels, and all are okay. What can parents do to help support their child in their learning journey?
Absolutely. Parents are my passion. You know, that's just the area that I thrive in, being a parent myself, but also even before that, just knowing that the parent is the key for why we are doing what we're doing. We would not be in the positions we're in. We would not have the schools we have if we did not have parents who entrusted their children with us. So first and foremost, having to know that parents are our most important factor within our school communities. And so part of that is making sure we take the time to find out what it is that they need and also be able to have the resources to address those needs. And the key also is building relationships. As they say, relationships.
Yes.
They are truly the key for parents being able to trust the adults, not so much of what they provide for their children, but also trusting the adults for what we can provide for them as a family. And so part of that, we've been able to connect with these partnering organizations providing the wraparound services, the dual generation supports that are now and services that are available within our district and beyond, and being able to now meet those needs so that they no longer become a barrier for what it is that the whole family needs, so the children can thrive, but not just the child, but the parent as well, so that we can provide sustainability for success.
Superintendent Green, what kinds of things have you seen that's a way to reach parents and get them more energized in a way that's meaningful, that might work, as we're moving into this next phase of hopefully post-COVID?
Yeah, I think building on assets and the resilience of our families. I think if nothing else through this pandemic and what we've seen pre-COVID was the fact that we have resilient families. We have relative caregivers and family members, extended family members who are helping raise our children. And so really looking at it from an asset base. How can we actually welcome them, create welcoming environments within our schools and our institutions to be able to give them a voice? It's not that we have all the answers. How can we solicit impact or feedback or information from them to better our system? Are we really working on their behalf? A lot of times we put up barriers that limit their willingness to want to get involved. Do we build those trusting relationships to really connect with them in a meaningful, holistic way so that they see themselves as a part of our school communities? Most often our schools don't really rest within the community per se. We still bus a lot of our children to our suburban schools. How do we forge that connection to limit that geographic gap or barrier that a lot of our families may be experiencing? What types of programs do we offer? Everything shouldn't be academic based. What are their needs? Do they have trusting staff members that they could reach out to? Is housing an issue? Is it a food insecurity? Is it something that they may need help or assistance with regarding employment? So really availing ourselves to what their needs are and how can we put systems and supports in place to be able to give them the voice to make us aware of how we can best support them.
You all talked a lot about the different inequities that are happening and the different issues that students are facing, especially understanding the whole student is a huge deal. What are 2 to 3 things that we can do right now to really start to change education in Delaware to make it more equitable?
Well, one of the things I would say would be technology.
Yeah.
So I think through the pandemic, I think Superintendent Green may agree that the use of technology has really been a powerful tool that now we've been able to utilize for our students, but also extending it now to the home. And so I think the more we can provide the use of technology and making the availability of the Wi-Fi and the access points for families, it can just change the trajectory of all of them, because Wi-Fi shouldn't be a barrier anymore. For children that are in the most need, we need to do a better job as partners to be able to ensure that the family has access, has the devices that are needed to be able to promote, as whether it's employment, whether it's connecting and communicating with schools and teachers in a different way instead of being present, but also that the students have access to the additional supports that they need academically.
Absolutely.
Right, it's akin to locking the school doors.
Yeah.
If you cannot get the technology, so
can't
if that's your
go
only
to
way
the
to
school.
learn.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think, technology is also just a way into the future. When we talk about careers, when we talk about the future is in technology. So if you have children who cannot practice
Absolutely.
typing, how are they working on a job?
Right.
How are they? So that is so instrumental. Thank you. Thank you so much. I want to say thank you to both of you so much for being here and for being here with us today. We really appreciate you, and we really appreciate you taking time out of your day, because I know you have some kids waiting for you.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Williams and Superintendent Green. We appreciate you being here. There is so much reason for optimism right now. There's so much reason because we have leaders like you who are here with us.
Yes.
And I know that we're getting on the right path, Delaware. We're working on it. We're more equitable, Delaware, more equitable in education. Now let's take a look at this important message. Thank you so much, and we'll be right back.
Across Delaware, our lowest income neighbors and families have been impacted disproportionately by COVID. Many kids who were on track for grade level success faced new challenges and found themselves falling further behind. Let's take, for example, Aaron and Tracy. Tracy's family has reliable internet and tablets available. When school went virtual, it was easy to adjust. Aaron's situation is different. She comes from a single-parent home, and it's been a challenge financially to keep a reliable internet connection. This made it difficult for Erin to adjust to learning virtually. On top of that, meals Erin received at school were a major source of her daily nutrition. How do we stop students like Erin from falling into an academic tailspin? That's where the Delaware Learning Pod community of practice comes into play. So what is a learning pod? A learning pod is a small group of students who study together in person in a safe, supervised location outside of the traditional classroom. Learning pods offer a classroom experience with the standard curriculum offered to include literacy and mathematics-directed work within each session. All learning pods include structured activities of groups of students who are overseen by an adult and have an expectation of regular attendance and are provided in a physical location, such as a school or a community-based facility. Learning pods fulfill a critical need to help decrease the learning achievement gap. Now, almost 1,000 students just like Erin attend 27 learning pods across Delaware. Students who attended learning pods had an 86% attendance rate, completed 83% of their assignments, with 22% making honor roll and 18% improving academically. Now, Erin and Tracy both have the resources they need to thrive. To learn more about the Delaware Learning Pod community of practice, visit UWDE.org.
Welcome back, everyone. And now, Michelle, we're gonna switch gears a little bit. We're gonna take a quick look at the Green Beret Project. The Green Beret Project offers dynamic after-school and weekend programming to help at-risk youth in Delaware and elsewhere build leadership qualities. Modeled after the Army's Green Beret training, the Green Beret Project engages young people in building rapport and trust through service projects, academic coaching, support, and mentorship. Let's take a look at how one Delawarean, Adam Kramer of Dover, is helping young Delawareans to take charge of their own lives.
So the bigger picture is lowering violence, right? When a kid is being educated, when a kid is being fed, nutritiously, when moral support, and all these things are, balance of life coming into this kid and he's seeing hope, then that lessens violence because he can be a part of something. There's a sense of belonging over here because if somebody's not feeding that child, that child is going to look for a sense of belonging in the wrong place. We have a young man who's been with us since he was 12. He's 18 now. So he was having trouble with some math classes through his senior year of high school. And it actually, turned into summer school. But he had the goal of going to the National Guard. So it was like, hey man, you need to come over here. We know you're a senior in high school and we know that you think you do not need this. But you're in danger of failing and having to repeat your senior year of high school. So we have one of our older graduated students who's 19, currently in the National Guard, come to tutor when he was 17 at the time, tutor him at math classes at the youth center. And that kid successfully graduated the summer school program, successfully got a high ASVAB score, which helped him become an electrician in the National Guard, which is actually takes a lot of math. Right, so that, to me, that is just one of the, I just love telling that story over and over again because, he was having trouble in math and now he's going into a profession where he needs to know algebra and math.
Wow, that was amazing. Kudos to Adam and the Green Beret Project. That was really inspiring. And, I just think that's so impactful, with working with young people all across the state of Delaware and the challenges that they face.
Well, their success rates are incredible. And so I think that just speaks volumes to the work that Adam and his team are really doing to change the face of education in Delaware and help the students that really need it the most.
Yeah.
Our next guest is Dr. Julius Mullen. Dr. Mullen will be speaking with us about ways students can manage through the daily stress of school and life, all while keeping their eye on the prize, and how parents and others can help them on that journey. You ready, Dr. Mullen?
Absolutely.
Hi. right. So do you mind if we call you Dr. J?
Yes, that works.
Okay, because I've heard a few people call you Dr. J. I didn't know if we were on that basis yet, but hi.
all good.
Welcome. Thank you for coming. So just tell us a little bit about what some of the work that you're doing with students and what really are the challenges that you see students are facing right now during COVID and the traumatic experiences that they're facing, especially trying to do our school online and being in school and not being in school and all of the things.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I want to really thank all the amazing educators and leaders and everyone who is in and out and responsible for providing education for our students. I think we all agree that the last several years have been incredibly stressful in so many different ways. If we look at the trends, trauma is certainly up with all the grief and the loss. Anxiety is a side effect, a real side effect of that particular trauma, but not only anxiety, depression and all the symptoms that come with depression, addictions and suicide certainly have become much more prevalent. And it's just too much for all of us, and certainly for our kids and our educators. It's too much for the brain. Trauma and all the mental health issues have a direct implication and consequence, unfortunately, negative consequence on the human brain. So I think there are best practices that many of our professionals, including professionals in our schools, are implementing up and down our state, including trauma-informed care strategies, social emotional learning, cultural responsive practices. So there are some amazing work that are being done in many lanes, in education and in our communities, because I think it takes the term I like to use, a full court press, and there have not been a time more provocative than now in terms of all of us coming together.
Dr. J, just for the audience, we heard in the last segment about social emotional learning. Can you just tell us a little bit, what is social emotional learning for the people watching and the parents watching? Like, what does that even mean?
Absolutely, and I think in layman's terms, social emotional learning really is understanding the prevalence of challenges, understanding that those challenges are stressful, and being able to develop skills and coping strategies to deal with stress.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So when you talk about the stresses, the anxiety, depression, how does that affect children in their education?
I think neuroscience have taught us best in terms of understanding the direct consequence of toxic stress on the human brain. And it has direct implications on a growing brain structure, architecture that we know all too well in children's brain. And many times there are two main parts that I like to emphasize on in terms of the structure of the brain. It's the upstairs brain and the downstairs brain. And one thing that stress will do, it will occupy the downstairs brain, which is all about emotions and feelings and fears and anger and frustration. But people need to be able to navigate their downstairs brain to go upstairs where they can think, retain information, remember concepts, be able to learn and make good decisions. Unfortunately, what COVID has been predominantly responsible for is occupying that space in our downstairs brain, not just children, but humans in general, where it's very much more difficult to rationalize and think and make good decisions and learn.
Think about how hard that is for a second. I mean, us as adults, we experienced trauma during the pandemic.
Absolutely.
Think about it, and some of us, not all of us, but some adults, have learned how to handle our feelings and can work through them. But our young people, they don't always have those tools, and so what kinds of things can parents do to help their children maybe navigate some of their feelings, or what kinds of things can we do to help support parents in that journey?
For parents, and teachers, I think the very best thing that parents can do is focus on their own needs first, and to pack and build their own internal capabilities in terms of making sure they're participating and engaging in self-care, revitalizing what that means in terms of being able to build their own capabilities. You know, there is a phrase that's going around in terms of put your own oxygen mask on first. That includes parents. That certainly includes teachers and adults as well. And once they're able to equip themselves with tools and strategies, and their self-care capabilities tend to increase, then they become much more of a better parent. They become much more effective as a teacher. So I think the predominant recommendation would be put their own oxygen mask on first, and then they become better parents.
Dr. Mullen, we are wrapping up, but we can't leave without talking about your book. Tell us about your book.
Well, an interesting story. My wife and I had a conversation on the way to Target.
Okay, Sarjay. I'll call it Sarjay.
Absolutely. And we just talked about the stressors and the challenges that have been going on, particularly in the last several years. We talked about the side effects, the stress in terms of so much division in our world, so much of a position where people are feeling like they have to choose sides of left or right or up or down or A or B or whatever. And we thought that kids are watching this. And kids are around this particular environment, particularly around adults, whether it's the parents or families or teachers or other adults. And we just came up with a simple answer in terms of, particularly from a kid perspective, just love me. Just love me regardless of any demographic identity. Just love me regardless of any life circumstance. Just love me regardless of any other specific situation. That is the ultimate answer in terms of countering all the division and the stress and the challenges, especially during a time such as this.
It's very powerful. I think, as a human being, just love me is a perfect way to sort of encapsulate what we're talking about. I just love this segment.
I do too, and I really love that you were here with us today to share that message. I think that is a great note to end on, in saying, in order for kids to be the best they can educationally, they need that love at home, and that's the most important thing. Love yourself so that you can love your child, or the child that you're caring for, because there are a lot of caregivers out there. Dr. J, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate having you. And right now, that is a wrap. I know, it went by so fast.
It went by
I know, right? Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Michelle, I appreciate you being here with me today.
Thanks for having me.
In our upcoming episodes, we'll look at how families can move from financial crisis to financial stability, and how help in a crisis is often just a phone call away through the Delaware 211 helpline. Impact 365 television with positive impact. Brought to you by United Way of Delaware and DETV. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.